I've been a painter all my life. Even when I thought I wasn't anymore, I still was. I'm going to the Sakura Festival tonight with my mother-in-law and Alec. It's going to be great. Lots of photos, lots of videos. It's all going up, but I thought I'd share. Hope I see you there.
Go! Don't jump the gun. Go! Okay. Okay. It's one.
Hi guys, so today's Tuesday. I'm gonna have some breakfast, take my meds, and then I'm gonna ship a painting to a lovely artist who did amazing pottery for me in a swap, Daniel Pierce. Incredible artwork. So yeah, and then I gotta get everything else going that I gotta do. But this is the start. Also, I gotta make sure Mochi eats something. Fun times. All right, so I'm gonna do two-part thing. One, I'm gonna talk about my breakfast, which is amazing. Made me an omelet and we're on some plantains. Incredible food, always the best. Key is to cook on low heat. I think the problem a lot of people have is they try and cook everything quickly on high, and it typically doesn't cook any faster, and a lot of times the food's kind of burned. Secondly, I've been talking with my students about Cubism and Futurism. So this all started because I ran across a bunch of conservative people who were in like art programs and whatnot, and they have this idea with MAGA that if they clear the board and make their own things that don't mimic anything else, that it will be wildly successful. The problem with this oftentimes services that in the attempt to not copy anyone, oftentimes you end up kind of starting to make stuff and then you just kind of fizzle out. Cubism and Futurism were extremely beautiful types of artwork, but the problem ends up being, like, as great as that is, it's not consistent. And to be like a great artist, you really need consistency. And so that kind of became an issue. The second issue would be it gets adopted into the whole Mussolini idea of government, and contrary to what a lot of people think, nobody really wants to fight for civil rights. You know what I mean? Like, everybody thinks like they want to put their hands up and fight to defend their rights, but they don't want to fight all day, every day, their entire lives in an endless battle to change the world into something else. Like, people want a rest break. It's just kind of how it works out. Even the people with good intentions eventually kind of burn out. And a lot of these movements, like, that's kind of how that happens. Side note, our buddy's still alive. He's actually pretty big. And it's just kind of one of those things where we think about art and we think about life and we think about all these things, but the problem you run across in a lot of cases is that people don't want to fight forever. Like, it's just not how that goes. Like, you look at all these conflicts that have happened in the world that you follow in the news, like, eventually you just kind of have like a fatigue that happens. Like, you're fighting for survival, but in survival, like, it's just a lot, you know? It pulls you in, and it makes you very, very, very exhausted, because you're like, why should I even have to fight for this? Like, this should just be like an inalienable right that I have to exist. And so the idea of someone fighting against the idea of people existing, like, they don't keep that up. They just don't. It's one of the reasons, like, we have elections for presidents every 4 years in America, because you just get tired of seeing these people. If they didn't have to sell themselves to you every 4 years, like, you'd just be really kind of bored. And they also wouldn't have to do anything, which is kind of the problem a lot of these places have. Like, they don't really have to do anything after a certain point because they already have power. Futurism kind of had that aspect where it was, we don't want to copy anybody else. We don't want to do anything that is repetitive or looks like something or does whatever. And then there'd just be these like exploded versions of all these arts that people love. And from that, it would look cool, but it just didn't hold its water. You know, you can't perpetually be the rebel. At some point in time, you seize power. And then once you seize power, you are now the authority. You can't rage against yourself, you know? It's an interesting concept. Then you get into Cubism. Cubism was more kind of like an African, like North African type art form, where they started doing stuff more kind of like the way Picasso does things. Let's see if I have anything in this book. This was a great book, by the way. It was only like $3. Once you get into Cubism, like Picasso, there we go, then it's interesting. And he did like thousands of works, but it just doesn't stick, you know? It doesn't stay around forever because, you know, you're trying not to imitate someone else. You get the Jackson Pollocks of the world and whatnot, who, not a surrealist, or an abstract artist, but not a cubist. And even he was going crazy trying to mimic this idea of, I make things that other people don't make, so, you know, look at me, see how I feel about it. And you just kind of go crazy. So in that, we try to make art that is somehow different. Make sure these are done all the way. That is a cold spot. You try and do something different, and in the process of trying to do something different, you end up kind of doing the same stuff on your own, like repeatedly, and that becomes slightly harder. Once again, gonna turn the heat down. I think they're okay now. I think they're okay. Good. Yeah, it's good. Okay. It's just this whole concept of, I'm going to be the first, I'm going to be original, I'm going to be all these things. And like, to make art for the sake of being original, for the sake of doing these things differently, oftentimes fails, because where's your inspiration after a certain point, you know? Like, when do you feel like you've accomplished that and you're not repeating yourself? this whole new world order type concept where everything you do is somehow, I like ketchup on mine. I know some of you will hate me for this, but I like ketchup on my eggs. I don't care. And yeah, just, it's hard, you know. Being an artist is hard enough than trying to make some type of political statement while being an artist about not being political is weird and hard, because like everything you do is political, you know, everything. Like you have no points in your existence where you're not making something that is your feeling about something or another. And so you kind of run across this weird idea that being a rebel for the sake of being a rebel works when you're like really young. As you get older, Rebel Without a Cause it works well as a movie title or a book, but it doesn't work perpetually as life. Artist Tech Talks. Gotta love them. So a large portion of the day goes to making sure this little girl eats a little more of her food. She lost a little weight. She doesn't quite have her appetite, but she's getting there, you know? She's getting there. And it's stressful and it's hard because I know she's hungry, but she just doesn't feel up to it sometimes. A couple bites. Okay. No hole. So yeah, I'm gonna go ship this stuff, see if I can get her to eat a little more, and then go see the boys.